What's the worst thing that a guy said to you that in his mind was a compliment?
This isn't going to be a crazy story. It's not the worst story on the planet. So if you're looking for something crazy, you can keep scrolling right now. I've only had one relationship, so I haven't spoken to a lot of boys in my life. Literally, like, just fucking one. However, I have been complimented. Now, let me show you something. Because right now, I'm not really shining, but I need to give you context. So when my hair and makeup is done, I look like this. And if a guy will see me and compliment me, it's usually oh, you look nice. Where are you from? Then I say, I'm Zimbabwean and South African. And then this happens a lot of the time. Nah, you're not African. You're not African. You do not look African at all. You do not look African at all. You know you're lucky that you look Caribbean. That's a big compliment that you look Caribbean. Like, you literally don't look African. Yeah, you're lucky though. Yeah, you are. Oh, not African, no. You're getting rejected anyways because I've got a boyfriend. But what the fuck are you trying to imply?
What's the worst thing that a guy said to you that in his mind was a compliment?
I have so many, bitch. I could write a thesis. I have so many. Oh my god, where do I even start? One time I was in college and I was teaching this kid how to cover a football game because I was a sports writer. At the end of the night, he looked me dead in my eyes and told me, you know, you're a lot smarter than you look. I don't think enough people tell you that. Boy, if you don't. Immediately I responded, what did you think I was gonna be, a dumb bitch? That was a really quiet car ride home. Bad day to carpool. Another time I was out at a bar with my friends and this guy was buying us drinks all night because he was trying to take me home. Obviously I had no intention of ever seeing or speaking to this man ever again, but I took those drinks. At the end of the night, he gave me his card and told me to hit him up because I looked like I would make a really great client. He was a personal trainer. Told me I was a fat bitch. But this fat bitch drained that bank account. Fuck you, dog.
What's the worst thing that a guy said to you that in his mind was a compliment?
So I was hooking up with this guy and we were laying in bed once and he smelled me and he was like, you smell so good. Oh my god, you always smell so good. It's like different. And of course I was like, oh my god, like, what do you mean different? And this white boy said, I don't know, you don't smell like white people. I know, but why you gotta go there?
What's the worst thing that a guy said to you that in his mind was a compliment?
Okay, so for a bit of context, where I live, it's low-key like racist, but everything's normalised here, so they don't see it as being racist as much. It's kind of ignorant, but I'm not actually from here, so like the bells, they go off. Everything this guy said to me, he was being dead serious, by the way. He said to me that my skin was the perfect colour of a cup of tea. He then said to me that he likes me because I'm mixed, but he'd be in love with me if I was white. This last bit was not meant to be a compliment. He was just letting me know. By the way, I was like 14 and he was 16 at the time, so I was naive and dumb as fuck. But I did stop talking to him after this. Oh, he told me that he'd never bring me home to his parents because I was black. Yeah.
What's the worst thing that a guy said to you that in his mind was a compliment?
My high school boyfriend, on our second date, we were walking down the street and he was telling me that he liked my outfit or whatever. And then he goes, oh, you have a really pretty face. And I was like, oh, thanks. Kind of like, you know, a weird thing to say, but all right. And he's like, yeah, I'd love to cut it off and wear it. And I laughed because I thought, oh, surely this must be just a bad joke. He didn't laugh, and he just looked at me weird when I laughed. So we dated for almost 3 years.
What's the worst thing that a guy said to you that in his mind was a compliment?
So I was talking to this guy that my parents set me up with because I'm brown. And after a couple weeks of talking, this man told me that he showed pictures of me to his friends, and he told me that his friends hated me. He said that his friends thought that I was extremely ugly and that I was fat and that he deserved someone that was a little less educated so that she could stay at home and cook, and he deserved someone that was thinner. And the worst part is not that he told me this. the worst part is that he legitimately believed that he was edgy and different and forward thinking for not liking skinny girls or for liking women that are educated. Disliking women because they're thin or disliking women because they want to stay at home is still sexism, my guy. You're not cool for liking fat girls.
What's the worst thing that a guy said to you that in his mind was a compliment?
So I have so many stories that I could stitch to this video. But one that really stuck out with me and that has always kind of like been in the back of my mind. I had a cousin that lived with me and he played football, and one day he was like hanging out with his buddies or whatever. And one of them was like, dude, Bailey would be so pretty if she just wasn't fat. My cousin took it as like, oh my God, this guy just called you pretty. Like, I'm going to tell you about it. And he came home and he was super excited to tell me that so-and-so said I was pretty. And I was like, but why can't I be pretty if I'm fat? Like, why does my weight have anything to do with who I am as a person? You already think my face is pretty, but because I have a fat stomach and thick thighs and a flabby freaking arm, I have 2 arms, but like flabby arms, I can't be pretty. No, sir, you are the ugly one.
What's the worst thing that a guy said to you that in his mind was a compliment?
So I was at a party and the guy told me that I was so excitable, and I reminded him of his dog.
What's the worst thing that a guy said to you that in his mind was a compliment?
It would have to be when a guy told me I was pretty for someone in a wheelchair.
What's the worst thing that a guy said to you that in his mind was a compliment?
I once had a guy come up to me at a club and start hitting on me, and he led with the line, "You look like you're well fed." Thank you, I am.
What's the worst thing that a guy said to you that in his mind was a compliment?
The first time my husband told me that he loved me when we were dating, he said, "I love you, muffin top," and I was 40 pounds overweight from what I normally was. And so I got kind of sad, and he's like, "What, you don't like when I call you muffin top?" And I said, "Well, do you know what muffin top is?" He goes, "Yeah, it's the best part of the muffin." And I said, "No, that's what we call fat that hangs over our jeans. And I've definitely got some muffin top right now." And he was so embarrassed, and he was like, "I didn't mean it that way. I seriously meant it because muffin tops are my favorite part of the muffin."
What's the worst thing that a guy said to you that in his mind was a compliment?
So long story short, he said, "There's no way that you are black," and ended it with, "I want to scalp you like an Indian and stuff your hair in my pillowcase."
What's the worst thing that a guy said to you that in his mind was a compliment?
"You're the prettiest girl with acne I've seen."
What's the worst thing that a guy said to you that in his mind was a compliment?
I was waiting for this one. So when I was working, I was training a set of people, and throughout this whole session, this one guy just kept staring at me, and I was like, okay, like he's just trying to be attentive, it's like totally fine. And then we had a break for lunch, and he decided to come sit with me. Everything was normal, it was like normal conversation, and I said I had to go back to prepare for my next session. So he wants to walk me back, so you're like going back, and he's like, "So, like, where are you from?" And before I could even answer, he's like, "Wait, let me guess." And I was like, "Okay." So he guesses Guyanese, Trini, and I was like, "No," but like I've gotten these like responses before, so I was like, whatever. So he's like, "Okay, then like where are you actually from?" And I said, "I'm Sri Lankan." And he's like, "No way." And I'm like, "Why do you sound so surprised?" And he's like, "I didn't know Sri Lankans were pretty until I met you." That's not even a compliment.
What's the worst thing that a guy said to you that in his mind was a compliment?
I've been waiting for this one. I was on a first date with a guy, and we were just like talking about our families and stuff, and I had mentioned that I was really close with my family and my parents, and he was like, "That's crazy to me that you're close with your dad because you pin me as a girl with daddy issues." I was like, "What the fuck does that even mean?" And he was like, "No, don't take it in like the wrong way. I just think you're like fun and you've got a wild side and you don't take shit from men." I was like, okay, I don't really understand how those two things are mutually inclusive, but Okay. And he obviously could tell that I was like put off from the conversation at this point, so he looks at me and he says, oh no, don't take this in the wrong way. I just usually go for girls with daddy issues because they're easier. But this could be like a fun little chase. Like, girl, the only thing I'm chasing is a restraining order after this conversation. What the fuck?
What's the worst thing that a guy said to you that in his mind was a compliment?
So I had just had my first baby. I was 3 weeks postpartum. I went back to work and there was this guy there that I worked next to. He had a huge crush on me and he was the first person that I saw in the morning when I came back. When I walked up to him, he looked at me and he's like, oh, you're back. How does it feel to be a mom? And then he looked me up and down and he's like, oh, it looks like you lost almost all of your baby weight. Good for you. There was a long pause of awkward silence and then he says, don't take that the wrong way. I mean, you look so good for having a baby 3 weeks ago. I'm just wondering how much more weight you have to lose until you're completely back to normal. Like, I don't want to talk about my baby weight with you or anybody, but thanks for the compliment.
What's the worst thing that a guy said to you that in his mind was a compliment?
He told me I tasted like scabs. And it was supposed to be a good thing because he likes to pick and eat the scabs on his knuckles!
What's the worst thing that a guy said to you that in his mind was a compliment?
I'm a stripper, and one time after dances, this guy was like, you're just so cute. I just want to, like, keep you in my basement. Okay, Hannibal Lecter.
What's the worst thing that a guy said to you that in his mind was a compliment?
I have so many stories like this, but I'm just going to start off with one. So I was seeing this one guy, and the first time that we had ever, like, done anything, you know what I mean? He started laughing in my face. And I was like, why are you laughing? He said, your boobs are so big. And I was like, okay, is that a bad thing? And he was like, oh, no, absolutely not. It's great. It's great. Okay, if it's great, then why are you laughing? And he said, well, when you're used to apples and then all of a sudden you get watermelons, it's kind of a crazy experience. This man was 29 years old and I was 22 years old. So you can imagine how bad I felt about myself in that moment. And it should have stopped there. But alas, I saw him for 6 more months.
Give me an item you bought that you were greatly disappointed in due to poor product description or false advertising.
I bought a banana duck. I got it off of Facebook Marketplace. And these were the pictures that they use, like, for, like, the ad. As you can tell, they are obviously outdoors and pretty large compared to, like, the poles and, like, the sidewalk and everything. So I was like, hey, I like weird things. I'll buy a banana duck sculpture. I don't know. I waited, like, a month for it to arrive. And it got here. But it's definitely not the size it shows in the pictures.
What's the rudest thing that anybody has ever just said directly to your face?
So one time when I was serving at a restaurant, I walked up to the table to introduce myself and said, hi, my name's Ulysses, I'll be your server. And then the lady at the table said, oh my God, Ulysses, I love that name. Are you Greek? And then I said, no, I'm not Greek. I'm actually Nicaraguan, which then she responded with, oh my God, Nicaraguan? But you're so attractive though. And then I must have made a face like this. Because then she said, oh my God, don't get offended. It's a compliment. I've been to Nicaragua and you look nothing like them.